Hello, good morning, welcome back. I think today, you've seen the title, but we need to do some underwear updates for Elizabeth because we had like a few like small problems at WonderCon. One of those being the hoop skirt rotated all over the place on its little strings that it's attached to. You know, we've just got a few little connectors here and there, and it rotated and it was no longer a circle by the end of the day. Also, the petticoat is not long enough. It does in fact not cover the bottom hoop. So there was a lot of times where the skirt was ending up like tucked inside the hoop, and it was a whole big problem. So we're going to, I think, just make a whole new petticoat that is either gonna go with this one or without this one. That's a thing that we're gonna figure out once I have the final fabric here and I start cartridging it. Yeah, and then also the chemise that I made to go under the strapless dress, I didn't even end up wearing it because it was literally like a tube and I knew it was gonna overstimulate me. So I didn't wear it, but then I wanted to have a chemise. At the end of the day, I was like, damn, I wish I had something underneath this, and I didn't. So I'm going to make one, but this one, it can have straps and it can be like a normal one. I actually have a pattern from when I made Dolores from Westworld for that like chemise, and that's, it's fantasy, but it's like around the same time-ish. It's like Old West, so it's like 1860s, 1870s probably. It's probably more like 1880s, honestly. But close enough for a chemise, you know, you feel me? So I'm probably actually just gonna end up using that pattern and the same fabric that I'm using, not this fabric, but the fabric that I got for the petticoat. I'm excited. We will just focus on the chemise, the petticoat. Oh, and I think I want a butt pad, because there is one photo that I have found that has a butt pad in it, and then I can also, if I want, put pockets onto the butt pad that are just like, it's like a tie strap with like the butt pad on it, and then it has some like pockets that hang off of it, and then I'll just have to create some slits in the petticoat for my hands to go in, and in the cartridge pleats, which I don't know if I'll actually end up doing that. Maybe I'll just keep it to like lift skirt into pocket, but then it's like I'm not getting into like my short pockets underneath, you know, because I was wearing shorts with it. Whatever. Anyways, yeah, that is the plan for now. We'll check in a bit.
I really decided to fly by the seat of my pants with this petticoat, but honestly, how hard can 3 rectangles be? The only thing is, I decided to put a curve on 2 of the rectangles. So this was originally the skin of the hoop skirt that I cannibalized to create the hoop skirt that I have now. I should also mention that I did replace the top one and then move the second one up and then put another one in, so it has more of a bell shape now than the like super triangle that it was. So I did go ahead and measure 1/4 of each of the hoops and the lengths in between and the full length of the hoop skirt so that I would have all the dimensions to know exactly how big this needed to be. So I did just add like 1 inch to all of those measurements to make sure that there was good wiggle room underneath for anything else that ends up underneath this petticoat in between the hoop skirt. You know, you feel me. So I did just trace that initial line and then add on that little bit of extra that I needed and then measure down. And I'm just taking the tape measure and I am marking down across that waistline, just down the measurement that I need plus a little bit for seam allowance, and then I'm double checking that next measurement where it's gonna hit for the 3rd hoop, and ta-da! Now for the second ring, I actually opened up the fabric because I thought that I was only going to get 1/4 out of this, but then I realized I could kind of just slightly alter the angle of that line and just cut a little bit of the corner and it was totally going to be fine. So I did cut 2 of these eventually. Now for the bottom ring, I actually just did a straight up non-curved rectangle and I actually made it way too long. I don't know where my math went wrong here because I did end up just doubling this in half and having it like a double thick bottom ring, and it worked out perfectly. It's like the perfect length. But I did just cut 2 of these and then I was still slightly short, so I just measured that last measurement across this bit of fabric. And then I cut that out and cut this piece in half to finish off this bottom ring. The only change that I did make was to the very top ring and to the waistband. I added a seam to the center back when I cut out the other one, and I cut that just all the way down so we could actually like get into the waist of it.
Okay, I tried to find the photo. I don't actually have it, I don't think. But there's like 2 scenes in the movie. It's basically, okay, there's 1 scene in the movie, 2 shots, where you can see her petticoat in the wedding dress. And this is all spoilers for the end of the movie. Basically, when he picks her up off of the bed, you can see one of the hoops and then a little bit of the ruffles on the petticoat. And then when he's carrying her down the stairs, you can also really see the petticoat. And it is like a very ruffled tulle that it looks like it's like layered like pretty tightly. So I've gotten a few yards of tulle. I don't know if it's gonna be enough, honestly, but I'm also thinking if I am layering these 2 petticoats, then it should be enough. And also with the cartridge pleating, you don't really need that much poof on the petticoat. You basically just want enough that you can't see like exactly where the hoops are, even though in the movie you can actually like kind of see that the petticoat underneath isn't very big. Yeah, I also was worried that my hoop skirt was going to be too small for the dress, but I think if I do this petticoat and then I have a ton of satin, I do believe I over ordered satin for the skirt, so I think we're gonna be fine.
I sewed the entire petticoat with French seams, which are my least favorite thing in the entire world. And the funny part is I also cut all of this out with pinking shears. So, you know, it would have been fine if I hadn't done French seams, but because this is a contest piece, I want everything to be nice and shiny and pretty. So I did French seams, which you basically just sew the seam twice. So you sew with the wrong sides together at half of your seam allowance, and then you flip it and you sew right sides together, and you just create a little circle holder thing that is the seam allowance. Now to lay the tulle on this, I'm just folding this in half rather than measuring, because I know that I'm gonna have just one on each edge of each ring and then one in the middle. So I'm just kind of creasing it, and then I did put pins in this layer. I don't think I did for any of the rest of them. I was really also flying by the seat of my pants on how spread out and how much tulle was going on each layer, but it ended up working out pretty perfectly in the end. I was staying pretty sparse up here at the top, and I was just taking rings and sewing the ends together, which I stopped doing, and then just kind of pinning kind of evenly. I wasn't gathering any of this with like the actual machine because I didn't want to. But then I just started laying tulle and then sewing rings together, and then eventually we had a petticoat. Yay! Yippee! 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 I will also say the waist measurement was like pretty big. And my intention originally was to layer these. I don't know if I will now, but I had a lot of wiggle room in this big new petticoat that I did not have in the original petticoat. So it just shows you if you fail, start again. The waistband is just a piece of 1-inch bias tape that I sewed across the entire length. And then I just fished this ribbon through with the blunt end of a yarn needle. And eventually I will go tie this down at the center front with just a little stitch to keep it in place. And yeah, that's literally our drawstring. I just have so much of this 1/8 ribbon lying around. I'm using it for everything.
Let me also mention before I forget that I did go through, I don't think I got any footage of it though, but I did go through all of these little attachments and I laid them all out properly, and I literally like measured out on each hoop how far apart they all needed to be, and I glued all of these to the hoops themselves. The only reason I'm doing it like this and not doing like a layer over is because this is like exactly how the hoops look in the costume shop for the movie. So, and like I said, there's like one scene where you can see one of her hoops and the petticoat when he picks her up, and you can see that the hoop is just like bare with the like bias tape or twill tape holding it together. So that's why I've done it this way, just because that is how they did theirs. So yeah, but they're all now glued to each other. They're not just like, because before I just sewn around and I was like, yeah, that'll be fine. It became an oval and not a circle anymore. So now it shouldn't do that. Yeah, I also could do a casing around each hoop, but that sounds like a lot of work for something that's like already put together. Maybe if we do a third underwear video, maybe we'll do that. Slight update that I'm actually filming this clip well after I have finished the rest of this video, but I have realized that I want more tulle on this skirt, and I didn't want to order more tulle, and then I was like, I'm missing out on the quintessential access to tulle to do this easily, which is just a roll of 6 inches of tulle that's like 50 yards or whatever, or 100 yards or whatever. So I'm basically gonna go buy a roll of that and just start gathering it all in like basically one go, and then just start attaching it, because I do want this to be more floofy, and rather than cutting more, I can just start tearing them in underneath these longer pieces and it'll be perfect. You feel? So that's the plan. I am going to add more floof to this skirt. You just probably won't see it, but you will see the skirt get poofier in other videos. Just a heads up. I am doing this after the fact of this video basically being done, so yeah.
On to the chemise! Instead of drafting a completely new chemise, I used a map that I had created for a pattern for Dolores from Westworld, and I basically just refitted it and lengthened it. I didn't record a lot of the chemise making that I did, but the base pattern is basically an unfitted dress base pattern that I then actually added more material to. And then originally this was a button-up chemise, and I just didn't want to do buttons or have the bulk of buttons, so I did make little ties to make this just a tie front. And I added a pleat in the center back and then 2 pleats to each side. There's also this weird attachment technique that I did for the original one where there's a piece of lace in between, but I just did another like 1-inch piece of material. I also kept the sides pretty open so there would be a lot of movement in this compared to the literal tube that I made for a chemise before. And then all the edges are just finished with more of that bias tape. I just bought a roll and I am using it up. I love that 1-inch bias tape. Just look at it with that corset. Okay, this was kind of a last minute decision, but I did decide to do a bum roll with pockets attached to it. So this is basically just like a pillow that goes on your butt, in between your butt and the hoop skirt, to give like a little bit more shape in the back. I don't know, man. There's one in the picture from the set, so I'm making one. I basically just took half my waist measurement, and then I drew it out, and then I decided how far down I wanted it to go, and then I redid this half circle like a bajillion times before I eventually just cut out not even along this line. I also, when I cut out the fabric, decided that this wasn't gonna be enough of a pad, so I did just kind of scooch it down the fabric a little bit, and I cut out a second piece to go on top to have like a layered effect, I guess. I don't know. I did it and it worked and it like is good, but you'll see what I mean in a second when I show it. The pockets, I literally measured my phone for base measurements because that is what will go in the pockets more than likely. More than anything, that is what's gonna go in. So I just literally like drew a rectangle with some seam allowance on it for the pocket. Yeah. When I sewed the pocket, I ended up also doing French seams for it too, so it's no longer the size of my phone. I would go like slightly larger than you think you're gonna want because you're gonna want it to be pretty big anyways. I did this one fitting with the bum roll to make sure that it was all good before I did just attach more of that 1-inch bias tape to it. And I did sew some little teeny darts into the bias tape as I kind of fitted it 2 or 3 more times before I then sewed on the pockets and some twill tape so that there's extra security in that cute little bum roll waistband. There's a whole lot of stuff that ties on to the waist of this costume, which I think is so funny, but that is just the reality of these kind of costumes, honestly. Like, how many layers do you have of just underwear, and how many more do you need? Because you gotta just talk me out of making some bloomers or some drawers, please. Like, we can't have a third underwear video. That's just craziness. But also, like, what if I did it? Like, that would be such a vibe. But also, that would be so many more layers. But also, I might have some electronics that need pockets. I don't know for certain. We're still figuring that out. Spoilers. But yeah, I think this all went very well. Like I did say, I'm gonna make some more updates to the petticoat as time goes on and as I finish more pieces for this costume. So look forward to that and just seeing it slowly expand into like one of those giant huge prom dresses. Because yeah, I can actually see that happening. I can see me adding like 400 yards of tulle. Because why would I not? Why would I not? I also am not entirely sure if I'm going to continue layering the petticoats. I do not have them layered right now, and I think I am not going to. I think I'm only going to use the new petticoat from here on out, unless I suddenly get a hankering to have more weight on this skirt. I don't know, we'll see. But so far, I really like the way that it looks.
I feel like it's been ages since I actually talked to the camera, but our new underwear, it feels done. I also potentially may end up throwing something in the bottom hem of this new petticoat just to like keep it over top of the hoop. I actually met this very wonderful individual at WonderCon that was like, oh yeah, just throw a safety pin in between your, like around your hoop attached to your petticoat so that it all stays like where it's supposed to. And like that sounds really great, but I also would love just like a better technique. And also perhaps if I ironed the hem of the petticoat, that would also help. Yeah, so I don't actually think I showed it, but I did gather the front of this petticoat a little bit when I attached it to the waistband so that the back would be more like just pulled with the like waistband ribbon, the drawstring one could say. But then I ended up, there's actually like so much material back there, and once this bias tape like kind of chills out and like relaxes a little bit, it'll fit much better. It also looks so freaking good, and it looks more akin to the half a second shot that you can actually see the petticoat in the movie, so I love that for us. And I also love recycling patterns that I know work and fit and all of the good stuff, even though I did add a little bit of extra spacing in this pattern. But yeah, and I like that I did some cute little ties. I think just having this chemise is gonna make me more comfortable, because when I did wear this corset to WonderCon, there was a moment where I had to change and I took it off, and it was like so booby just because of the way that this like pushes up your chest. It was just like, and I was like, I feel like I'm gonna have some spillage. I might throw a little bit of ribbon as well in the top of the corset just because I know it will hold it. I also need to give her a little bathtub wash because she does have some dye from the blue Elizabeth on her. Not that that's a problem because the other dress is gonna be lined. So yeah, but thank you for being here for underwear updates. This has been so fun, and I'm really excited to see where we go from here. So yeah, thanks, and I will see you in the next one.